So, why aren't houses in the UK like hot singles, forever available and in your local area? I mean, the big UK house building companies just crap up hundreds of thousands of houses a year. You'd think you'd be drowning in new homes, that your DMs would be full, and that you'd be forever receiving grainy, unsolicited images of badly angled kitchen islands. But no. It turns out there's a simple trick you can use as a home builder to make sure that house prices never go down, no matter how many homes you build. And it involves land banks. If that phrase doesn't yet make you want to get your pitchfork sharpeners out, then hold on, we'll get there. Let me take you through it, and welcome to Bonobo Economicus, where we look at all the weird topics that no one else would dare to look at.
Step 1. All your land belong to us.
So let's say you're a UK house building company. You know, one of the ones making a cheeky billion or two in profit. And you want to make bank by building houses to sell without the price ever going down. Step 1 is simple. You simply buy all the buildable land. This is crucial as competition is a bitch, and I, a house building CEO, need to make money so I can donate to all these charities whose names I just can't quite remember at the moment. Normally, free market competition is supposed to work like this. Let's say you're little Timmy trying to sell lemonade so his school friends can eat lunch. If you, little Timmy, raise your prices too much, then I can just set up my lemonade stand next to you, undercut your prices, force you out of business, and force your buddies into lifelong malnourishment. But if little Timmy shows us that he's smart, for example by subscribing to my channel, and buys all the lemons, he can then squeeze out all the competition, preventing them from ever competing. And it turns out that this is exactly what property developers do. They buy all the buildable land. But don't just take my word for it. Here's the Local Government Association, aka the association of all the people who ever grant planning permission, talking about it. 2.78 million homes have been granted planning permission by councils since 2010-2011. But over the same period, only 1.6 million have actually been built. AKA, there are over 1 million homes just sitting about waiting to be built, and that's up from about 600,000 in 2015. So an increase of 400,000. In fact, there are only about 200,000 homes being built a year in this country overall. So right now, there's land with planning permission equal to more than 5 times the annual supply of homes being hoarded. It's ridiculous. And if we look at the UK house building companies, we can see who's to blame.
How long is your land bank?
If we take a look at the top home builders in the UK, you'll see some very girthy numbers on their land banks and land bank years, which is a lovely term they use to illustrate their parasitic hoarding tendencies. These guys, they have 83,000 plots they can build for the next 6 years without ever having to buy new land. These guys, 4.7 years of land banked away. These guys, they're not even going to tell you how many years of buildable land they've got, but they are sat on potential homes equivalent to a city the size of Chester. But once you've bought all the land, what are you going to do? You still want to get your profits higher than Cocaine Bear. To do that, you need to build stuff and sell it, which could crash the price through oversupply. It turns out there's a twist.
It's not how much you've got, it's how you use it.
Forget little Timmy. You're now a UK home builder. Let's call you Twarat Homes. Let's say you see the juicy town of Whiffelby Hollow, and you start buying all the buildable land and adding it to your ever-growing land bank, shown here in red. But you're not going to build on all of it all at once. Nuh-uh, that would bring prices down. Instead, we're just going to build one spot at a time. 20 homes by Dingleby here 1 year, another 20 by Wankley on Scump 4 years later. Suddenly, there's only 20 homes being built in Whiffelby Hollow every 4 years. The prices are skyrocketing and no one's going to be able to compete with you. What are they going to do? Build it on top of their mouldy rented flat? But, I hear you say, the market isn't like that. There are other home building companies who compete with each other. So let's see how that plays out. You, Twarat Homes, are competing for land with Naylor Stinky, shown here in blue. Naylor Stinky has bought all the land around Nans Forest, Shag End and towards Fartington on Vale. They've started building a few homes, while you're restricted to land in the Dingleby Scump area. But here's where your land bank comes into use once again. Instead of building in Whifferby Hollow, you go build homes elsewhere. Effectively, home builders are doing the equivalent of edging the entire UK population in their local areas, bringing them to the edge of having affordable housing built near them, but never quite taking them there. But the best part about having a lengthy land bank is that it's not just a way to not have to compete on price now, it's also a way to not have to compete with other builders on price for years to come. Hence, we see figures on land bank years, aka how long a company can go on building without having to buy any new land, being paraded in front of investors to show off.
But first, a quick rebuttal.
At this point, we need to take a short detour to address any criticisms that might be levelled at this argument so far. You might work in the home building industry, and I know people that do. Or you might be one of those random social media types who love to use their tongues to clean the boot, pressing their head to the floor. But either way, you might argue home building companies need land banks, and you'd be correct. It takes time to get planning permission, and storing up land mitigates against future moves of land prices. It's a good way to manage risk in what should be a fairly risky business. To which I can respond, sure, having land banks might be necessary, but I take massive issue with how they're used. It might be necessary for me to own industrial strength lubricant for my car, but if I use that lubricant to coat the floors and pavements around an old people's home, then clearly something's wrong. Currently, home builders are maximising the scale of the housing crisis by only ever building a few homes in any one place at any one time, creating artificial scarcity for what is a basic human right. But looking even deeper, the land banks themselves aren't even the problem. The problem is that we've taken the provision of what is a fundamental human need and delegated it to a bunch of pricks who don't give a shit about any of us. Land banks are just one of the many weapons the man uses to keep you bent over in your cramped tenancy pen, secreting that sweet, sweet rent like the good human cattle you are.
Why does no one want to build affordable houses anymore?
But wait a second, it wasn't like that for your boomer parents, who, presumably, upon leaving school were given a 2 halfpenny monthly mortgage on a 4-bed manor, alongside their final salary pension scheme and an overwhelming desire to vote Tory for the rest of their life. So what changed? It turns out that back in the bad old days, before Thatcher clock in the 1980s, primary responsibility for home building actually resided in the hands of those who do give a shit about us, namely local councils. Going back to the 60s and 70s, coincidentally when much of the UK's modern urban housing stock was built, the share of homes built by local councils in the UK pretty frequently exceeded the share of homes built by the private sector, bumping around about 40 to 60% of the total. These days, we're lucky to see a share of 2 or 3% of homes built per year by local councils. Local councils built good, affordable homes, and like most good things in this country, Thatcher and David Cameron came along and annihilated them. Thatcher in particular introduced the right to buy, forcing local councils and housing associations to sell off their homes to the tenants living in them, and Cameron absolutely gutted the budgets of local councils in the name of austerity. Or as I like to call it, George Osborne's ugly failure. Seriously, who lets this guy speak in 2023? But going back to local councils, government grants to local authorities were cut by 37% from 2010 to 2015, and the data since then ain't pretty either. Faced with more piffling considerations like children in poverty and women seeking refuge from domestic violence, local councils scooped up the shriveled remains of their housing budgets, shoved them in the bin, and they haven't been seen since. But the really interesting thing I find about looking at this graph is that the private sector hasn't picked up the slack. The numbers of homes being built in this country have collapsed over the last 40 years, and it suits the home building companies like Barrett and Persimmon just fine. The people who feel the worst effects of this are actually people like, I'm guessing, yourself. Young people who spend their lives renting in insecure, one-year tenancy housing situations, dealing with joyful black mould, invasive species of cockroach, and the unprecedented joy of sharing a single toilet with 7 other people. If you're tired of queuing for the shower at 7 AM, then know that blocks of affordable 1 or 2 bedroom flats in urban areas are generally the answer to the HMO bullshit we see today. But local councils were pretty much the only organisations who saw the value in building any of these kind of one-bedroom, two-bedroom flats. We should also cover off housing associations at some point. To this day, they build and control a small but significant number of homes, generally for marginalised and vulnerable people. For my more right-wing comrades, you can think of housing associations as some sort of sick, twisted socialist handout for the kinds of people who Tory MPs are surely much better off if they slept tasting the pavement every night. But enough about housing associations for now.
But what are the alternatives?
Still with me? Here's our story so far. Private home building companies in the UK hoard land and use it to only build a few houses in each place at any time, keeping prices high. But actually, home building as a whole, and building of affordable 1 and 2 bed flats in particular, is massively down since the 1980s when Thatcher decided that we couldn't have nice things. But let's take a different approach. Alternatively, you might want to start your own home building company. First of all, good luck. You need a crap ton of money to build a crap ton of houses. I can't stress enough how much money you'll need, amongst all the materials, land, and bribes to Tory ministers. But second of all, the existing house companies have already bought much of the buildable land, and will probably buy you out too if you look too threatening to them. But screw it, you think. If I want a house, I'll build one myself. You know, I actually tried this myself recently, and the conversation with the mortgage advisor went something like this.
I have found a plot of land with planning permission and now need money to build a house on it.
Excellent news. How much is the plot of land with planning permission?
About £200,000.
And how much will it cost to build your house?
About £150,000, I think.
So altogether it will cost £350,000. What's the average house price in that area for that kind of house?
An average price for that kind of house in that area would be about £290,000.
So by building the house you'd be causing the value of your investment to go down by about £60,000, is that correct? And do you have more than £60,000 of your own money that you're willing to put down as a deposit? All the best of luck, kiddo. We will be wishing you good luck from behind our enormous pile of money.
So what does this mean for you? It means no building your own house, because the cost of the plot of land plus building the thing would basically lose you money. Alternatively, you can buy your own plot of land without planning permission and hope that within the next 2 or 3 years you get planning permission for what you want to build. Good luck with that. Let us know how it goes.
A side note, nobody knows who owns the UK.
On a side note, it's incredibly difficult to find out in the UK who owns what land. There's no maps showing who owns what. Instead, you have to search individual postcodes at a time, and all the maps where you can click on a property and see who owns it cost loads of money to either the land registry or private companies to be able to access. And who cares when it's all Saudis, Charleses and Russians? The screenshots I took for this video were from a service that costs £2 a year, and you can't get it from the land registry unless you're a business. And this is a feature, not a bug. We pay them as taxpayers to only share that information with wealthy business owners. But back to you and your silly little need to have a roof over your silly little head. Will this situation ever get better?
Will it ever get better?
So here's the thing. It shouldn't surprise you, but UK house building is a profitable business. Look at these numbers. They're making tens or sometimes hundreds of thousands of profit on the sale of every single home. And this is fantastically bad news for the rest of us, because those profits can be reinvested back into buying even more land, lengthening their land bank years, hoarding plots, and generally making new homes even more affordable for decades to come. Even better, as mergers and acquisitions continue in the UK home building market, the competition will shrink to being even less than it is now. But to answer the question, will it get better or not, the answer is entirely a political one. I haven't seen any evidence that the Labour Party has much interest in restoring local council budgets to where they were prior to Osborne and Cameron's cuts. And local councils are probably the only ones who will ever care about building affordable housing. Meanwhile, the home building companies are some of the largest donators to the Tories, alongside Russian oligarchs and dead people. I mean, seriously guys, Even if, for some reason, you still identify as a conservative, what does it say about your party that these are the only people who want to fund your cause? But overall, watch the donations to the Labour Party over the next few years. If, in 5 years' time, we're all sat here and Barratt Homes is shelling out for Keir Starmer's gold-plated toilet paper, we're all screwed. Obviously we're screwed now. But you never know. Next time, we'll be talking about one of the UK's biggest, most profitable and most famous hedge funds. I guarantee you'll have heard of them, but I bet you can't guess who they are. Or, if you'd like to find out all the sneaky tricks companies use to make sure you never get promoted, click here. This has been Bonobo Economicus on behalf of underrepresented economic topics. If you'd like to find out more about the tricks the man uses to keep your face under his shoe, then you can join me by hitting that subscribe button. Thank you for watching.